Hello, everybody. Just joining in. Hello, hello. We have a really, really fun presentation today. I'm so excited to be kind of putting this on with Mac from the Honeybook team. She's talking all about improving client workflows with Honeybook, which I love and are just awesome. And I feel like there's always ways to improve them, always ways to be more efficient with them. I'm really excited to dive into everything she's going to talk about today. So we also want this to just kind of be a fun, interactive live too. So make sure to use the chat to make sure to, if you have questions throughout the questions, use the Q&A questions that way, because we're going to address some questions at the end and then we can go over all those questions. And also too, I will be, we're recording this and I'll be sending out the recording replay afterwards too, just so you have to, just so you can kind of know that. But that's kind of a little bit of what we're going to kind of go over. I'll kind of hand things over to Mac. She'll talk about the breakdown of what today's going to be, what we're going to go over, and all the things. So Mac, go ahead, take the floor.
Hi. Oh my gosh, I love everyone in the chat. Hi, James. Hi, Megan. Awesome. Yeah, so we are going to be spending like the next 30 minutes or so going through some high-level ideas around client flows, workflows, how Honeybook can help you improve them, how you should be approaching your process and your client flows from a really tactical big picture perspective, and how you can really think about improving them too. So that'll be like our next 30 minutes together. And then I am going to save time at the end for any questions. So like Rach said, if you want to go ahead and use the Q&A, I'll kind of dive into that specific section afterwards, and we'll just go through in chronological order. The other cool thing in the Q&A is you can upvote things. So if you want to read through real quick or skim to see if someone else had the same question as you, you can just upvote it. And that way I don't get a bunch of the same questions. And I know that one is top priority to answer. Okay, cool. So agenda today, what we're going to be talking about, like I said, we're going to go through high level. What is a client flow? How can you identify what your client flow is as a business owner? And then obviously that will help you know how to even improve your client flow too. So then we'll even go into how Honeybook can play a role in that, what tools Honeybook has to offer, and kind of our latest and greatest updates. If you guys are Honeybook users, you've probably seen, but we just came out with a huge feature launch and release of a new builder. We're kind of reinventing files and the way you run your business. So that is going to be a large part of the presentation today as well. So let's get into it. Probably should introduce myself more formally. So my name is Mac. I'm part of the product education team. I've been with Honeybook since 2017, so I know the product like the back of my hand. Again, if you're a Honeybook member user, you might have seen me before. So come on over to any of our webinars on that side of things, and we'll be able to hang out again. Diving right in. So we're talking about client flows, right? What the heck does this mean? We're kind of familiar with the idea of workflows. We maybe understand the idea of a client journey. So what are we talking about here? So this is really talking about your unique process and your unique client journey. So this is not talking about reinventing the wheel, right? This is something that you already have. It's just a matter of really taking ownership and pride in that process and understanding that on a deeper level, like at this depth level, where you can now improve that and tell a system like Honeybook what to do for you and how your client flow is really going to operate and be super successful. So we're really just talking about all the different steps in your process that your client will take when they're interacting with you. So whether that's internal workflows on your side or the actual end result of what your client sees, all of those steps and processes are your client flows. So some of the typical steps in your client flow will include mutual qualification, your bookings, your project management, and then your completion of the project, right? Of course, there's a lot of little nuances and steps in between here, but these are kind of some really common across the board, no matter what industry you're in. These are kind of the common steps that you might be looking at. And all of this is kind of wrapped up to equal your client relationship. Okay, so your client relationship, your client flow, these are all connected in your process. So how do you, again, take ownership in this, and how can you really start to master this process at a level where there's consistency across the board. You know exactly how you operate, and you're really inviting your clients into that experience with you, right? Because that's what we're going here for. We're going for a consistent, repeatable process that's still personal, right? You're not going to lose that personality or those customized, really relational touch points, but rather you're going to perfect your process, master your process to the point where your clients feel like they can 100% trust you. You're putting your best foot forward every time. Nothing is slipping through their cracks. You're not involved at places in the process, wasting time where you don't need to be, etc. Okay, so I'm kind of teasing a little bit to some of these questions that I want you guys to ask yourself. When we're talking about mastering, the idea of mastering your client flow, there's really 3 key questions. And of course, there's probably more. I know Rach probably has a bunch that she could give you guys too, but I want to give you 3 key questions that you can take away today to really evaluate where you are in this journey of kind of mastering your process. Okay, so the first question we're going to go through here is, where are things slipping through the cracks? Okay, and you might feel like, oh no, girl, like I'm totally on top of it, like nothing slips through the cracks. Okay, let me phrase it a little bit differently, right? Maybe things aren't slipping through the cracks, but maybe you feel like you are chasing people down. You are feeling a little scattered and disorganized. You've kind of got like a little bit of a hodgepodge kind of Frankenstein system going on. You got your email inbox one place, you got your photo galleries another place, you got all this stuff kind of mixed together, and none of the systems are talking to each other, right? So this feeling of scattered, things actually slipping through the cracks, or you feel like you're chasing people down, these are all kind of in the same vein of systems that are not consolidated into one place, or your funnel basically of clientele and projects being scattered amongst different programs. Okay, so this is like the first question we can ask ourselves today. And this is not to say you're doing anything wrong. Also, I should say that, because everybody's on the same boat, really. Like, we're all kind of doing our best. I just want to point out like ways that you can improve and like save yourself time, and again step into that next stage of mastery, and really giving you this like power of choice as well, which we'll get into a little bit later in the presentation too. So this is not to say, again, you're not doing anything wrong. We're literally all in the same boat. These are just areas to kind of focus in and improve and elevate, to improve your own life, really, like to improve your own process, to give your clients that exceptional experience. I could go on and on. Okay, we're moving on to the next question. Where are you currently involved, but maybe you don't need to be? Okay, so some examples of this might be, actually, one of the biggest examples I can give here is if you're someone, especially my photographer folks, if you're not using a scheduling tool, please do me a favor today. And literally, I don't even care if you do it in Honeybook, to be honest, but just save yourself, save me the heartache of knowing that you're out there without a scheduling tool. We have one in Honeybook, so come over to Honeybook if you want, but literally just do me a favor and use this scheduling feature. It's such a massive time save. And when we're talking about being involved where you don't need to be, all of those ping pong emails trying to get things scheduled, let's spare each other this pain, right? Okay. Another place or example, or kind of like how to decide if you're involved but you don't need to be, like where do you kind of draw that line? Another example of that is if you're answering the same questions over and over again with your clients. This is a great indicator that there is a kind of speed bump in your process that you can really smooth over by addressing those things proactively with your clientele. So if you're getting the same questions over and over again at a certain point in the process, that is a great indicator that you need to take the opportunity to set those expectations earlier on, so that you're not having to answer, smooth over, however you want to think about it, those points in your process with your clients. You can instead proactively insert the expectations that you need your clients to understand in those moments. Okay. Another way to do this is to assess each step against the last and the next in your process. So what am I talking about here? So let's just take an example of receiving an inquiry, right? So let's say today you receive an inquiry through your website and you get an email notification in your inbox. The next step from there is you like to send them a pricing guide based on the services they're interested in. Once they kind of indicate the services that they're interested in, you schedule a call with them. Maybe today in your process, those are 3 different steps, and you are personally hitting send on each of those interactions. You are waiting to get back to your computer to reply to that inquiry, to type up that email from scratch, to attach that PDF to send over to the client. You wait for them to reply, then you share, hopefully, your scheduling link, right? To get time in the books with them to be able to introduce them to your onboarding process, mutually qualify them on that call, and that kind of move on to the next step. But for the most part, that is one step in your process: receiving the inquiry, getting them the information they need, which is the pricing guide and your link to schedule. What if you could do that all automatically, right? Like, what if that was a template that was personalized to them, that had the pricing that they requested, that then had the link for them to be able to schedule? Okay, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I'm also kind of teasing you guys to what is to come with the Honeybook tools we're going to touch on today. So I want you guys to understand too, when we are talking about letting go of your process, I know it feels scary, and I know it's like a really hard place to be, because this is your business and your clients are hiring you, and there is this personal relational thing that it is hard to decide where to draw that line in the sand to say, I will be involved up to this point, or I will be involved here but not here. So how do you decide this? I want to tell all of you guys today that you can have personalized, customized interactions with your client without it being unique every single time. Do not put yourself in a position where you're reinventing the wheel every time you go to communicate with a client. Take pride in the ownership of your process. Understand and identify what that process looks like, and then invite the client into it, right? We're not just like spitballing here. We're proud of what we do and we know what we're doing. So take pride in that. And with a system like Honeybook, you can tell the system what that process looks like and how you want it to operate. Okay, again, I could go on and on here. Clearly, I already am. The last question that we can process here is really taking a deep dive and a cold, hard look at our booking process. How effortless is your booking process? Like, are you asking your clients to send you a check in the mail? Are you asking them to create a PayPal account and go in and figure that out? Like, how effortless? Another way to ask this is, if you are your client on the other side of the computer screen, is it as simple as them checking out on Amazon? I know Amazon is like our big scary enemy. But you know what? Everybody gets those little Prime boxes showing up on their doorstep. It's like this evil that we can't resist because it is so easy, right? Like, make your process that easy while still being personal and you and anti-Amazon, if that's your vibe. But we're talking about sitting in the client's shoes and making sure that it's really, really effortless, right? Like, actually, when we think about it, the payment swiping, the take my money moment should actually be the most forgettable part of your process. Ideally, your client doesn't remember how much it cost or when they paid or anything like that. It's all kind of automatic on the back end. You want them focused over here, working with you, the product you're providing, the service you're providing, the relationship they're building with you. The money should be an afterthought, right? Like, if you can get them into that zone, like, we're talking big changes for your business, right? So those are kind of the 3 questions I want to leave you guys with. So that's all we're going to talk about in terms of what is a client flow, how to identify it for your business, how to improve it. So where does Honeybook come in? How is Honeybook going to help you with this? So any great system really is going to help you do this, but obviously me and Rach are fans of Honeybook, so that's what we're going to talk about. So Honeybook is a business management software for independent business owners just like you guys. By nature, implementing a tool like Honeybook is going to illuminate your process and immediately bring you business insights in a way that you've never had it before. So it'll bring to the surface your client flow because you're getting visibility into your business, again, in a way that no hodgepodge, Frankenstein, fixer-upper process is going to bring to the surface, because these tools are going to show you who you're working with, what part of the process they're in with you at a bird's eye view. Okay, so we're going to help you manage everything from your very first client inquiry all the way through your qualification process, all of your bookings, any file sharing you're doing through the completion of the project with that client. So this is all to say that Honeybook will automatically solve for a lot of these problems by nature. But the system is also only going to be as bulletproof, as good as your process is. This is good news because you now are, again, given this opportunity to really own that process and step into the zone of ownership and taking pride in your work and really being able to invite your clients into that process with you. Okay. So a couple of, the tools that are going to help you get there. We've got scheduling, invoicing, contracting, automations, automatic job tracking. We're going to get into all of this, but first I want to touch on our kind of latest and greatest stuff. And we're calling this new feature Smart Files. Okay. So what are Smart Files? To some, it seems like we're reinventing files as you know them today, and you're not far off. In yesterday's world, and even Honeybook was guilty of this too. So if you guys are Honeybook users, you know what I'm talking about too. But in yesterday's world, your process was kind of defined by rigid, predefined structures of communicating with your clients. So how did you get information from them? Maybe you send them a questionnaire. How do you qualify them? Maybe you scheduled a call, but it was like each step kind of lived in a vacuum and lived in a silo. But now with Smart Files, we're allowing you to do everything in one document. So we're giving you, again, this power of choice to determine what your process actually looks like, what you actually need your clients to be doing at any given point in your process, and create an inclusive file that can do all of that. So when I was giving my example earlier of an inquiry reaching out through your website, you could set it up in Honeybook so that they automatically, upon inquiring, receive a welcome packet from you that is a video welcoming them, thanking them for inquiring. You've got some pages of client testimonials. You've got setting expectations, what it's like to work with you. You've got some qualification questions. Maybe you're going to list out your services so they can select what they're interested in. And then the final page is setting up a call with you. And they get that file automatically. And it feels 100% personalized to them, to what they're reaching out about. And you haven't even had to lift a finger, okay? So it's really, really the perfect time to be identifying those bottlenecks in your business that we were just talking about, places where you're waiting for the client or vice versa, they're waiting for you. Those are the areas where you're going to look to combine these steps using the power of Smart Files, okay? So what can a Smart File do? We're going to quickly go through and define some of these things. So you can have questions, you can have text, you can have images, you could have video, you can have contracts, invoices, payment options, services, and scheduling is coming soon. So these tools all live in one file, and you can have them broken down into pages. So to kind of give you some examples here, this is what one could look like, right? You've got the question elements, and you've got text and images and your logo, and you're really kind of, again, inviting them into that process. You could have onboarding flows, qualification documents, interactive pricing guides where they're actually choosing the services they want to move forward with and paying you in the same file. So it's got a lot of like assumptive moving them forward in your process. Like how much can you walk them down the line in your process before you need to take a pause? Like what does one ideal kind of client interaction look like? That's what the smart files are allowing you to do. So this goes across the board from your booking experiences, onboarding, offboarding, all of that good stuff. A great place to start if you guys are Honeybook members out there and you're trying to get adjusted to smart files. Firstly, a great place to start is to ask those 3 questions of your business that we were just talking about, and kind of assessing the steps in your process to see where you can afford to combine files that you used to use. So if you like to ask questions and schedule a call and have your client pay all in the same day, you can put that all in one file now. So really kind of identifying those steps that can be combined. Another place, obviously, is our incredible template gallery. So you can pop in there either just as an inspiration source to see what others have built and what it's kind of truly capable of, or to take some of that and actually start to replace those like text components, image components, company blocks, and replace that information with your own. So whether you're starting from scratch or just reevaluating your existing process, the template gallery is a really great place to start. This is kind of an example of what it could look like when you're using a template, right? You can pop in your own images, your own branding, your own colors, your own text, and then that way it's really quickly looking more and more like you. So these files are all working hand in hand with the other tools that are available in the Honeybook system. All of these project management tools are in one place. So some of the other tools that we offer are things like lead capture and lead management. So all of your contact form, website inquiries, Instagram inquiries, wherever your leads are coming from, now are going to have one funnel into one central location so you can communicate with them. That one central location is going to be your Honeybook system, and you get to track everything automatically in your Honeybook pipeline. So there are automatic job tracking features here. Honeybook will be able to track when you've communicated with your client, what files have been sent, what files have been opened, signed, paid, and it's going to track specifically that booking process for you. So again, giving you these insights and visibility into who's who in your process and what part of your process they are in a way that you never had it before, right? Like, I don't know, maybe you have the most organized Gmail inbox I've ever seen in my life, but I think I do, and it's still kind of a hot mess sometimes. So letting a system like this take over and inviting you into kind of this elevated world of operating your business is a huge, huge help. Other tools we touched on are scheduling, automation, so building out steps based on certain triggers and events. So if your client pays, then we want this email to go out with a link to schedule and the questionnaire file attached. Things like that. You can build out those kind of hands-off processes. And then ultimately, kind of more broad picture here, it's just going to be a huge organizational tool. So general organization and consolidation, we talked about your one single funnel, your one source of truth. If you were one of my folks who, when I was talking about kind of a scattered system earlier, that really resonated with you, hopefully Honeybook would solve for that a lot right off the bat, just because it's allowing all of your clients to live in one place. You can track all of your conversations back and forth, all of your files sent, payments made, contracts signed, any other information. Now it's all living in one place. So on a individual client by client basis, tracked in that pipeline pipeline. And then even further on an individual level, when you click down into it, you're going to be able to see how this conversation is going and where you're at with this specific individual client. Okay, last couple points here before we open it up to questions for you guys. What is the big picture? Like, what are we really talking about here? I touched on a little bit of it at the beginning, but the real sense that I want you guys to walk away with is that Honeybook, and like I've said, any good system really, I'm just an expert on Honeybook, so that's what I'm going to talk to you about, is going to give you this autonomy in your business that there might be a little bit of a like pull there where you're like a little bit of resistance to it, because that much choice actually can feel a little intimidating and it can feel a little scary. But there is power in choice. We need to remember this. Choice is not a bad thing. It might feel a little scary, but allowing yourself that power of choice is going to make sure that you really can take that sense of mastery in your process and really define what your process is. So you, as a business owner, right? Let's be proud of this. We get to take this process to a system like Honeybook and we get to say, this is how I operate. This is what it looks like to work with me. This is my brand. This is the client experience. This is my client flow. And you get to tell that to the system rather than the other way around. Okay. Forever, because for me, I feel like no tool out there exists like this. We're always being told by systems and other people's processes and the way that files work, just even by definition, how we should be operating, right? Like, oh, an invoice, this is how it works. What if, though, you got to say that your invoice also includes all of the documentation you need to kick off the next step of your process so that you don't have to be waiting, yeah, you got payment, but now you have to wait for the client to get back to you with the information so you can actually start your work and you're not over promising on something. You get to decide what works for your business and you get to tell the system how that's going to operate. So it allows you to combine the steps where you need to, and it also allows you to hold space where you need to so that you are involved at precisely the moments that you need to be, no less and no more, which ultimately, you guys, means more time back to do what you love. And maybe that's spending time with your family, or maybe that's, hiring more people to scale up. Maybe that's taking on more clients to scale up. Whatever it means, we're ultimately talking about, this ownership in your business, ownership in your process, and really talking about creating space by having a system that is entirely bulletproof and using Honeybook as your partner in that process. Okay. I know I've been preaching for a while. That was everything I wanted to go through.
Oh my goodness. I could not echo all this enough. I think it is so cool and just like totally aligned with what I like to teach and like want for other people too. So I think this is going to be a really cool feature for people to use. Like
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of opportunity. I do feel like it's one of those things where it kind of seems overwhelming to set up at first, but like you said, it's basically everything you already have. You're just kind of combining and condensing things and
Exactly.
like figuring out what needs to be sent to people at that exact time. What, like, where do you actually need to be in the process? Where can you pull yourself out of it? All
Yeah.
of that stuff. So I think that's even cool. I'm even making notes here. I'm like, where can I, with my workflow now, combine them where it's
Right.
like, oh, these could be, combined into like one step.
Exactly.
So that's really
Yeah.
exciting. Does anybody
Yeah.
have questions about anything?
Yeah. Feel free to hop in and let us know any questions. I am going to throw out there too Rachel's discount for you guys. So this is going to be, I'm just going to put a little, It's going to come as like a slide out on the bottom of the screen. And then I also pinned it in the top of the chat there. But the deal basically is $1 per month for your first 8 months with us. So it's an incredible offering. It's the best price out there. So definitely take advantage of that. If you haven't been able to start a trial yet, you can do that there. It looks like there's a question from Michelle. Are you going to discuss the difference between legacy and smart files? Not 100% sure the difference. Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So, yeah, super good question. If you guys are not currently Honeybook users, basically what Michelle is referencing is kind of like the old version of Honeybook files versus this new version that we're talking about today. So the old versus the new legacy files, and I touched on this slightly just in the sense that like files in yesterday's world, inside or outside of Honeybook, were just kind of rigid, and they were defined by like maybe one, maybe two actions. And the way that you could display content or even the actions that the file was built around were relatively rigid or kind of set in stone. But now with smart files, we're really giving you, again, that kind of autonomy to be able to say what parts of your process you essentially the best way I can describe it is like a smart file is just a file. So it's going to be one document that's sent to your client, and it can do any of the things that any traditional file, any legacy file could do. So it can do as many of those things or as few of those things as you want. If you still just want to send a smart file that only has one action, and that one action is invoicing, it's just an invoice. Like it's not that deep. It's just kind of like it can do anything that you want it to do. So it's just by nature defined by what you tell it to do. Whereas obviously legacy files or the old version of files was really, again, the system was telling you how to operate rather than the other way around. James has a question. Are there resources or tutorial videos on a somewhat step-by-step process of how to set up my Honeybook? Because it's a lot of tools and templates and can overwhelm me a lot of the time. Yeah, definitely. So I would say our help center is like a really awesome place to start. You can basically just search like anything in here. Like we literally have a getting started guide. Am I spelling that wrong? I'm like, do you know sometimes when you like type a word and you're like, hello, what is, okay. The quick start guide to smart files right here. Yeah, getting started with Honeybook, there it was. So this one is a great one. There's a video in here, a whole video walkthrough, and then step-by-step takes you through the process. So I can pop this into the chat for you there, James, so you can review that. But yeah, the help center is an awesome one. And then if you're like a really video heavy person, in the help center down at the bottom, we have a whole training and video tutorial section. So if you click in there, you'll get all of the visual trainings that you would be looking for.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Okay.
Resource.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we can wrap up. Whatever you guys need, just let me know.
Lauren has a question.
Cool. I've had Honeybook for a while, but I feel like I don't take advantage of all that it can do. What features do you recommend to implement that might not be as self-explanatory? Hope that makes sense. Yes, 100%. So you guys are in luck. It seems like the majority of folks here are Honeybook users, so I'm just going to kind of like approach it that way too. We just launched a whole webinar series. So if this is like your preferred format for learning, which I'm assuming it is because you're here, we just launched a whole series on smart files specifically, but it'll also tie into a lot of the other Honeybook tools. So even the reason I'm touching on this is because I think one of the tools that's the least self-explanatory or maybe like the most advanced in Honeybook is going to be automations. And the only reason that I say that is because there's a lot of pre-work that goes into setting up the Honeybook system as a whole before automations can even be like a stop on the road for you to set up. So this Thursday, actually, I'm doing a hour-long session on automations with Honeybook. So we're going to go into smart files and tying in automations and how to do all of that. So I can grab, let me see if I have the link handy. Otherwise, I'm just going to grab it really quick. I'll just throw the link in the chat for the entire series that we're doing because there's 5 sessions. We just did one last Thursday that's all about templates, and it's also just a good baseline session for understanding smart files and kind of how to approach them and legacy files versus smart files and all that stuff. So that link you can check out for other kind of deeper dives because today we just kind of scratched the surface on a lot. Okay, Alina has a question. Is a smart file kind of like the brochures, but we can add more to it? That's a good way to think about it. Yeah, if you're familiar with Honeybook brochures, that was probably the like closest that we had to smart files, just because you could add content and images and services. So there were like different ways to convey that information plus different actions. But now you can even like with a brochure, you could also add like the ability for them to pay now and the ability to sign a contract, and you could have like a welcome page and you could add a video and like all those different things. So yeah, it's basically, if it's easier to think about it that way, that's pretty close. So that's totally fine. Lauren says, yes, I feel like I haven't organized everything well on the front end, so the automation sounds scary. Totally. Yeah. Well, there's basically like 5 steps that I go through anytime I teach on automations. And the first 4 are like not even in the automations tab because you just want to get the other kind of groundwork underneath you. Like before you get to automations, obviously you need your templates to be built out correctly. So like, okay, we'll spend some time doing that. So yeah, definitely understand that, Lauren. You're totally not alone. Great. Cool. And I don't think we got any questions. Yeah. Yeah, we didn't get any other questions in the QA, so we're good on that side. Cool.
Very cool. Yeah, really good questions. Hopefully this was helpful for people just to kind of get a better understanding of it too, because I think a lot of people are like, well, what is it? Like, what are they?
Right.
What are these smart files? What are they? All that. So I think that just gives like a better understanding of what they are, kind of how to use them. And I think what helps me like connect to that more is just knowing that's basically taking your workflow, like automations if you have now, and condensing them down into like grouping things together.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the other big questions that I get or like sticky points around the new smart files and this whole concept is like, what is the difference between smart files and automations? So just to quickly define and give like a simple definition for that, smart files is all around combining steps in your process. So think about it like, I'm a really visual person, so I like to picture like my client on the other end in front of their laptop. Like when I hit send, how much do I want them to be able to do at this current step? Like when they open the one file, how many things do I want them to have access to doing? So it's all about combining steps. Automations is all about breaking steps up to happen at different times in your process. So we know, right, a file is one client interaction. So how many things do you want to be like bundled up in that one interaction versus automations would be like, 3 months before I want this file to send, and maybe that file has 3 steps in it. And then like 2 months before that, I want this other thing. So it's more about like breaking up those steps at spread apart times, whereas smart files is all about how much can happen at one time. So hopefully that kind of clears the air. Do you think that makes sense, Rachel?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a really good way to put it and break it down. Personally, that resonates with me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I feel like that usually resonates. Like usually people are like in the chat, like, okay, yeah, I get it now. So
yeah,
I think that's kind of the definition that I'm sticking with on that one.
Yeah, I think so too.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I want to make sure that we like respect everyone's time. And I know we're getting to like the 40-minute mark, and it seems like we answered all the questions. So I'm so grateful to be here with you guys. Thank you so much, Rachel, for hosting, and I hope it was helpful.
Yes, I thought it was helpful. So hopefully everyone
Well,
else did too, kind of took some stuff away from it. And again, I'll have the replay link and can send that as well. And if you have any follow-up questions, just definitely let us know as well.
awesome. Great. Oh, Sarah's wondering about scheduling. Oh, Lord, Sarah, that's like a whole nother like hour-long session I could do if I wanted to go into like the depths of the scheduling tool. I would say if you're looking for more resources on that, honestly, let me just grab you a quick link from the Help Center just to kind of high level go over it.
It is
That is like,
amazing.
it's pretty awesome. Like it's just such a game changer to take yourself out of that part of the process too, like I was saying. So yeah, awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. We'll be sending the recording out soon, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Yay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rachel. Bye, guys.